We try and preempt these situations from arising by having a carefully designed legal framework and also carefully designed set of policies which give priority to law and order. Free speech is important, but we don't have much tolerance for fake speech. Fake speech doesn't come within the ambit of free speech. Nor do we have any tolerance for racial or religious hate speech. Nor do we have any tolerance for speech that incites violence, particularly if these can impact on law and order. Let me explain. We regulate protests under the Public Order Act. So if you have protests, we have a law which essentially prohibits protests unless you get a permit from the police. And if you get past that, you have very empowered law enforcement agencies. So then it doesn't get beyond that. Why don't we allow protests? People ask me, journalists ask me, 50 people want to come together and they want to talk. They want to say, they're unhappy. Well, such gatherings often start off well-intentioned, led by honest, idealistic people. So that's what people say, why don't you allow? But what you see is that often these get hijacked. You can see from the examples that from the UK, but people with their own agendas who want to create violence will get within these groups and they will hijack these protests, often try and engineer violence. So if you have 2,000 people coming together, 50 in there will want to create violence. And what will happen is they will throw stones, they will damage property. And from the police perspective, you don't know who is a good guy and who is doing the violence. This has happened regularly. It happened in Hong Kong, happened in Europe, happened in Sri Lanka, many such incidents. People say, why don't you allow protests on Palestine? If we allow that, and the minorities want that, I tell some of them, then I will have to allow protests on Ukraine too. Then I should allow protests against China relating to Uyghurs if people want to do that. Then I should allow protests in Singapore about the treatment of minorities in Malaysia. Just work that out. Who will be entitled to protest in Singapore about how minorities are treated in Malaysia? Sauce for the gander is sauce for the goose. And we should also allow protests on domestic issues, including racial issues. So where do you draw the line? So we don't take the same ideology as the British do. Our ideology is these are not allowed. So our laws underpin our ideology.